My brother found me sitting on the curb outside a Walgreens, my 7-month-old strapped to my chest in a carrier, both of us soaked through. It was 94 degrees and I'd been walking for 40 minutes. He pulled up, rolled down the window, and just stared at me for a second. "Why are you on foot?" he said. "Where's your car?" I didn't even know how to start. I said, "Your sister-in-law's mother took it." He put the car in park. Let me back up because none of this makes sense without context. And honestly, even with context, it barely makes sense. My husband, Finn, and I have been married for 2 years. We have a daughter, 7 months old, the kind of baby who is genuinely easy until she isn't, and when she isn't, she really isn't. We bought a house together before she was born, a 3-bedroom in a suburb outside Columbus, Ohio, the kind of neighborhood where people wave at you from their driveways and the HOA sends passive-aggressive letters about trash cans. We were supposed to be building something. That was the plan. About 6 months ago, Finn's mother, who I will call his mother because that is the only thing she has ever been to me, not a friend, not a second mom, just his mother, she started spending more time with us. Her name is Patricia. She lives 40 minutes away. But after our daughter was born, she started showing up 2-3 times a week. I understood it at first. She wanted to be close to her granddaughter. I wanted our daughter to have that relationship. I said yes to everything. That was my first mistake. By month 4, Patricia wasn't just visiting. She was rearranging my kitchen. She was throwing away baby gear I had specifically chosen and replacing it with things she preferred. She told me the way I was swaddling was wrong. She told me I was feeding on demand too much and I was creating bad habits. She told Finn, in front of me, that she was worried I wasn't bonding properly because I seemed stressed. I was stressed. I had a 4-month-old and a mother-in-law who treated my house like a hotel she managed. Finn's response, every single time, was some variation of "she means well." That phrase. I have heard it so many times it has stopped sounding like words. His sister Courtney came into the picture about 2 months after that. She's 24, lives in an apartment downtown, and has the energy of someone who has never had to pay a bill she didn't want to pay. She started coming with Patricia on weekends. The 2 of them together in my house was a specific kind of chaos. Patricia directing, Courtney narrating, both of them treating me like a prop in a family tableau they were staging for themselves. I want to be clear about something. I am not a pushover by nature. Before I had my daughter, I worked full-time in healthcare administration. I managed contracts, I negotiated with insurance companies, I supervised a team of 12. I know how to hold a position, but something happens when you have a baby and you're sleep-deprived and your hormones are still recalibrating and the person who is supposed to be your partner keeps telling you to keep the peace. You start second-guessing every instinct you have. You start wondering if maybe you're the problem. That's what 6 months of She Means Well does to a person. The Saturday this all happened, I had a pediatrician appointment at 10 in the morning across town. My daughter had been running a low-grade fever for 2 days, and I wanted her checked out. I had my car, a Subaru Outback, mine, in my name, bought before Finn and I were even engaged, loaded with the diaper bag, the stroller, my wallet, my phone, everything. I came back inside to get my daughter from her bouncer, and when I came back out, Patricia was standing next to my car. She had her hand out. "Courtney needs to get to her friend's bridal shower," she said. "She needs the car." I actually laughed. I thought she was joking. She was not joking. She said Courtney's car was in the shop, which I later found out was not entirely true. It had a dead battery, which is a $200 fix, not a crisis, and the shower was in Dublin, and could I please just lend Courtney the car for the afternoon? I said no. I said I had a pediatrician appointment. I said my daughter had a fever. Patricia said, and I remember this word for word because I've replayed it many times, "She doesn't need a doctor for a little fever. You're overreacting. You can reschedule." Courtney can't reschedule a bridal shower. I said I wasn't lending my car. Patricia said, "I'm not asking." I don't know what happened in the next 30 seconds. I genuinely don't. I think I was so shocked that I just stood there, And in that window, Patricia took the keys. They were in my hand. She just took them and walked around to the driver's side and got in. Courtney was already in the passenger seat. I didn't even see her get in. I stood in my own driveway holding my daughter and watched my car pull out. I went inside. Finn was on the couch watching college football highlights. I told him what just happened. He muted the TV, which I suppose was something, and said, "Mom probably just figured you could Uber to the doctor." Finn. I'll talk to her later. She took my car. She borrowed it. She'll bring it back. She took it out of my hand. He turned the volume back up. Not all the way, but enough. I called the pediatrician and they said they could fit us in at 1 if I could make it. I said I'd try. I put my daughter in her carrier, put my wallet and my phone in the diaper bag, and started walking to the bus stop 3 blocks away. The bus route to the pediatric clinic involves 2 transfers and takes about 1 hour and 10 minutes under normal circumstances. It was 94 degrees. By the time I got to the first transfer point, I was lightheaded and my daughter was fussing, and I had gone through most of the water I brought. I sat on a bench under a partial awning, and I called Finn. He didn't pick up. I called him again. He picked up on the 3rd call, and I told him I needed him to come get us. I wasn't okay. It was too hot. He said he was watching the game. He said, "Can't you just call an Uber?" I had $12 in my account that week because we had just paid our mortgage and an unexpected car repair, ironically on Finn's truck, and I hadn't transferred my next paycheck yet. Uber across town was going to be at minimum $25. I told him that. He said, "Mom has your card in her wallet. She'll pay you back." I want you to understand the architecture of that sentence. His mother had taken my car, and somehow my debit card was also in his mother's wallet. I didn't even know when that had happened. I sat on that bench for a while. My daughter had stopped fussing and was sweaty and quiet against my chest in a way that made me nervous. I missed the 1 o'clock appointment. I called the office and rescheduled for Monday, and tried not to cry in front of the woman on the phone. My brother called me while I was sitting there. I don't even remember if I called him or if it was a coincidence. I think I had texted him something earlier in the week about the Patricia situation, just venting, and he was following up. When he called, I just said, "I'm sitting outside a Walgreens on Morse Road with the baby, can you come get me?" He was there in 11 minutes. He didn't say much in the car at first. My brother is the kind of person who processes before he speaks, which used to frustrate me when we were teenagers, and now I appreciate more than I can say. He turned the air conditioning all the way up and handed me a water bottle from his back seat without being asked. He drove. After a few minutes he said, "Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about the keys, about Finn and the football game, about the bus, about the $12, about my debit card somehow being in Patricia's wallet. I told him about the 6 months before that, the kitchen, the swaddling, the bonding comment, all of it. I talked for probably 20 minutes straight. And by the end of it, I was crying. Not the ugly kind, just the quiet kind, where tears keep coming, and you don't have the energy to stop them. My brother pulled into a parking lot. He sat there for a second. Then he said, "Okay, where does Finn live?" I said, "I live there too." He said, "Not today you don't. Today it's where Finn lives. Where does he live?" We drove to my house. My brother told me to stay in the car. I didn't stay in the car. I got out and followed him because it's my house and I wasn't going to sit in a parking lot while someone else dealt with my life. Finn opened the door. He looked at my brother, then at me, then back at my brother. He said, "Hey, what's going on?" My brother said very quietly, "Your wife has been walking in 94-degree heat with a 7-month-old for the better part of an hour because your mother took her car keys out of her hand in her own driveway. So I need you to tell me what you're planning to do about that." Finn said, "She would have been fine." My brother said she had $12 and a baby with a fever. She was not fine. Finn looked at me, and I don't know what he was looking for. Maybe he wanted me to soften it, to add context, to say it wasn't that bad, the way I had been saying that about everything for 6 months. I didn't say anything. He said, "I'll call my mom." My brother said, "I'd love to be here for that conversation." Finn called Patricia. She answered on the second ring. He put it on speaker, whether intentionally or because he forgot. I'm not sure. He asked where she was. She said she was at the bridal shower venue with Courtney. Wasn't that the whole point? He said he needed her to bring the car back. There was a pause. Patricia said, she needs to learn that she can't just say no to family. This was a good lesson. The room was quiet for a second. My brother said from across the room, did she just say that out loud? Finn looked sick. I will give him that. He looked genuinely ill, like something had shifted in his understanding of what was happening here. He said, Mom, come back, now. She said she'd be back in a few hours. He said, now, or I'm reporting the car stolen. Another pause. Longer this time. She said, you wouldn't do that. He said, the registration is in my wife's name. I'll do whatever she tells me to do. I don't know if that was the moment Finn actually meant it, or if it was performance pressure, because my brother was standing in our living room. I honestly still don't know. But he said it, and the line was quiet for a very long time, and then Patricia said she'd be on her way. They were back 45 minutes later. My brother stayed. He sat in our kitchen and drank the coffee I made him, and did not pretend he wasn't listening to everything happening in the driveway. Patricia pulled in. Courtney was still with her. They both got out of the car with the specific energy of people who have decided in the car ride over that they are the wronged party. Patricia came to the door first. She knocked, which she never does. She usually just walks in, and I thought that was interesting. I opened the door. She said, I want to talk about what just happened. I said, okay. She said that she felt disrespected by the way Finn had spoken to her. She said she had only been trying to help Courtney. She said that in her family comes first, and she was sorry if I didn't understand that yet. But she hoped I would learn. I said, you took my keys out of my hand. She said, you were being stubborn. I said, my daughter had a fever. I was trying to take her to the doctor. She said, a little fever never hurt anyone. You're a first-time mother. You don't have perspective yet. And then she said the thing that I think about the most, even now. She said, I've been doing this for 30 years. You've been doing it for 7 months. Maybe show a little humility. I said, get off my porch. She looked at me like I'd thrown something at her. I said it again, quieter. Get off my porch, Patricia. She turned to Finn. She said, are you going to let her speak to me like that? Finn said, you need to go, Mom. Courtney, who had been standing behind Patricia this whole time with her arms crossed, said, this is unbelievable. We came all this way to apologize, and this is what we get. My brother, from inside the kitchen where he could absolutely hear everything, said loud enough to carry, that wasn't an apology. Courtney said, who is he? I said, he's the person who picked me up off a curb because your mother took my car. Patricia left. Not gracefully. There was a lot of door energy, the kind where someone doesn't slam it but closes it just barely too hard, and you can feel the statement in it. Courtney followed her. I stood at the door and watched them get in Patricia's car. Not mine, she'd left mine in the driveway, and drive away. I went inside. I sat down at the kitchen table. My daughter was in her bouncer by the window, finally calm, watching the ceiling fan the way babies do, like it's the most fascinating thing they've ever seen. My brother put his hand on my shoulder and said, you okay? I said, I don't know. He said, what do you need? I said, I need to think. He nodded. He stayed another hour, helped me get the baby down for her nap, and left without making me talk any more than I wanted to. Finn and I didn't really talk that night. He ordered pizza, which felt like an attempt at normalcy that neither of us was ready for. We ate it at the kitchen table without saying much. At some point he said, I should have gotten in the car. When you called me. I said, yeah. He said, I'm sorry. I said, I know. I didn't tell him that sorry wasn't enough. Not yet. That conversation was coming, but it wasn't that night. The next morning I called my daughter's pediatrician from the driveway while Finn was still asleep. I got her the Monday appointment. Her fever broke on Sunday night, and the doctor said she was fine, ears clear, throat clear, probably a minor virus. She was fine. But I kept thinking about the 30 seconds in the driveway. The moment Patricia put her hand out and I hesitated. I keep trying to understand what I was thinking in that moment, and honestly, I think I wasn't thinking anything. I think I had been so conditioned to defer, to absorb, to keep the peace, that my body just froze. 6 months of she means well had done something to my instincts. That made me angrier than anything else, if I'm being honest. Not the car, not the walk, not even the $12. The fact that I had hesitated, that she had counted on it. I had a longer conversation with Finn that Monday. I told him that his mother wasn't going to be in our house unsupervised anymore. I told him that Courtney wasn't welcome for the foreseeable future. I told him that if he said she means well one more time, I was going to need him to finish that sentence. Well, for whom exactly? Because it wasn't for me. It wasn't for our daughter. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You're right." Just that 2 words. I had been waiting 6 months for 2 words. He said, "I'd been making excuses because it was easier than having the conversation. I didn't want to be in the middle." He said, "But I was already in the middle. I just wasn't picking a side." I said I needed you to pick our side, mine and hers. I nodded toward our daughter, who was sitting in her high chair working very seriously on a piece of banana. "That's your family. Right there. That's who comes first." He said, "I know." Patricia called 3 times that week. Finn let them go to voicemail. On the 4th day, she showed up at the house, and he went outside and talked to her in the driveway for about 20 minutes. I watched from the window. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard enough. I heard him say non-negotiable. I heard him say need space. I heard him say once, "That's not your decision to make." She left without coming inside. He came back in, and he looked tired in the way people look tired when they've done something hard that they should have done a long time ago. I didn't say anything. I made him a cup of coffee and set it on the counter. He sat down and drank it. That was a few weeks ago now. We're still working through it being the kind of phrase that sanitizes what is actually an ongoing, uncomfortable renegotiation of what our marriage looks like. Some days are fine. Some days I look at him and still feel the particular cold of sitting on that bench in 94 degrees, wondering if my daughter was too hot, waiting for a bus with $12. But here is what I know. I got off the curb. I opened my own front door. I said, "Get off my porch," out loud in my own voice, and I did not soften it afterward. My brother called me the next day and asked how I was doing. I said, "Better." He said, "Good. For what it's worth, you looked pretty terrifying at that door." I laughed. It was the first time I'd laughed in about 4 days. My daughter is 8 months old now. She has 2 teeth and a strong opinion about pured peas, which is that she does not want them. She's fine. She was always going to be fine. I just need to remember that I was allowed to make sure of it. I keep thinking about those 30 seconds in the driveway. Patricia's hand out, palm up, waiting, and me, just standing there. That hesitation is the part that stays with me. Not the walk, not the heat, not even Finn on the couch with the volume up. It's that I paused. That somewhere in 6 months of small surrenders, I had trained myself to wait for permission before I acted on my own instincts. That's not something that happens to you all at once. It happens in increments. 1 she means well, 1 she means well, 1 swallowed response, 1 rearranged kitchen at a time, until the day you're standing in your own driveway and your body just freezes, because freezing has become the path of least resistance. What Patricia did was wrong in a plain, clear way that doesn't need a lot of unpacking. She took something that wasn't hers and she called it a lesson. But here's what I've come to understand. She could only do that because I had spent months making myself smaller than I actually am. That's on me. Not the blame. I'm not interested in blaming myself, but the responsibility. There's a difference. Blame is about the past. Responsibility is about what you do next. What I did next was say, "Get off my porch," out loud, without softening it. And that sentence, as small as it sounds, was actually the end of a very long internal argument I had been losing for half a year. Finn said she means well, because it was easier than the alternative, which was choosing a side and living with that choice. I understand that impulse. Conflict with people you love is expensive, emotionally, relationally, in every way. But the thing Finn didn't fully reckon with until my brother was standing in our living room is that avoiding conflict is also a choice. Silence is a vote. Turning up the volume is a vote. Every time he stayed out of it, he was telling Patricia, without saying a word, that there were no real consequences for how she treated me. She acted accordingly. That's the part that took me a while to articulate, even to myself. Cause and effect doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a man on a couch who just doesn't want to deal with it today. What got me off that bench wasn't anger, even though I was angry. It was clarity. My daughter was pressed against my chest in 94 degrees, and I thought, with complete calm, this is not acceptable. Not, I'm upset. Not, this isn't fair. Just, this cannot continue. That kind of clarity is something I had to earn. It came from being pushed far enough that there was no comfortable ambiguity left. I think about the woman I was 6 months ago, who thought keeping the peace was the same thing as keeping the family together. She was wrong, and she learned it the hard way, and I don't regret a single step of the walk that taught her. My daughter has 2 teeth now and strong opinions about peas. She is going to grow up watching how I handle things. That matters to me more than anything Patricia thinks I still need to learn.